Hey, my Padawans. Good evening. Um, I've been sick for the last 3 days. I don't know if you can tell by my voice. So I wanted to talk about George Noory. I'm listening to George Noory in the car. George Noory has a guest, and his show tonight is about anger management, how to control your anger, what it does to your body, how it takes over your life. And I identify with this show. I'm listening right now. I just took a break to make this video. The reason I want to, intertwine these topics is because I'm sick, and George Noory has been sick for the last 3 months. I don't know what's wrong with George. He has lost his voice. He sounds very brittle, he doesn't sound as powerful as when he started out. Something is wrong, is what I'm saying. There's something wrong with George, and I'm very worried about it. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't like George. George Noory this, George Noory sucks. George Noory can never be Art Bell. And yes, I know that. George Noory can never be Art Bell. Nobody could replace Art Bell. I know that. But he has been doing Coast to Coast for 22 years. And I don't know if it's time for him to retire. He sounds very sick. I don't know why Tom hasn't brought it up. He sounds depressed. His voice is not the same. I don't know. It could be the karaoke. Maybe he's singing karaoke on his days off. Maybe he's drinking. I don't know. I don't know George personally. And I feel sick. I think I have kind of the same squeaky, weak voice right now, like George. I don't want George to die, guys. I know you guys say, oh, somebody else has to do Coast to Coast. It's about time. He could go another 10 years. I just want to know what's wrong with him. He doesn't sound right. Anyway, so I'm listening tonight to the show. I'm going to get some coffee and drink some tea. I've been sick. I don't know what it is. I'm sure it's not the COVID-19 virus. It's probably just a minor flu. Maybe I'm overstressing myself. But I want to play this clip of tonight's show with his guest about anger. He has a book and a website. And as you know, I had a lot of anger problems last year. It's high testosterone. It takes over your entire life. Anger can destroy you. And that's why I had to delete everything and walk away. And I have very much less anger today than, let's say, a year ago. And that's great. And for me, there are a lot of methods, a lot of things you can do. But for me, connecting myself with the force, that was helpful. So let me play this clip with George, and I'll be right back.
To scare their employees, to get them to work harder.
Yeah, it's a control device. There's that thing, if you think I'm going to come at you if you do something wrong or you don't perform to my standards, people think that, well, yeah, that's going to get those people motivated, and for a while it will, but what typically happens is they burn out, they leave, they go in other places. You fire them eventually because they just can't take it anymore. You start seeing them taking time off because now they've got their own mental health concerns. Anger is always going to have some type of an abusive component to it, and it's always going to be negative. So, regardless of what you think you're using it for, it's always anger, and it always comes out negative.
Is it normal to be angry sometimes?
Yeah, we all have that. It's how far it goes. It's how often it happens. It's what we do with it. It's our willingness really to look at ourselves and say, yeah, I got this. I get angry. We want to be able to admit that and then be willing to do something about it.
If a child was beaten by his parents when he was little, does he generally grow up to be an angry person?
Not always. Sometimes, a lot of times kids will model that, and they'll go out and they'll be bullies or what have you. Sometimes it goes the other way, and they react with no anger, and you'll find them having their own emotional problems because they never seem to be able to break out of that.
Can you spot an angry person right away fast?
Usually, with the more passive kinds of things, not always. That sometimes takes a little while to evolve so you can see it. But for the most part, you can see that the way they're speaking, because really what's happening, George, is an aggressive person that behaves aggressively is also an aggressive thinker. So you don't have to see them act out. You might see the way they talk or the way they walk, and their body language, their eye contact, all those kinds of things. That all plays into it.
That old saying, let off some steam, you'll feel better. Is that accurate?
Well, you may feel better physically, but it depends on what you call letting off steam. You can go down in the gym and hit the heavy bag, or go out for a jog. You can let off steam that way. You can scream, into your pillow, whatever. But when you get into, yelling at other people and screaming at them, and you call that venting just because you got angry, there's a receiver on that other end. You're doing some collateral damage there, and often then you end up trying to patch that up.
We're going to come back in a moment with Foss Ruggiero. A couple of his books include The Fix, Your Anxiety Handbook, The Fix Yourself Handbook, Using the Process of Way to Transform Your Life into a Happy, Healthy Journey. And his website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Next hour, we'll open up the phone lines, share stories about anger. Maybe you've witnessed it. Maybe you've done it. But share the story with us. But we'll be back with more in a moment on Coast to Coast AM.
Coast Insiders, the new version of the Coast to Coast AM app, is now available for iPhone and now Android 4.0 and above. Listen live or on demand anywhere, anytime. Go to coasttocoastam.com and download it today.
All right, so you heard the clip with George. Listen to his voice. There's something wrong with George. He sounds fragile. He sounds low. He sounds sick. His lungs, maybe his lungs are not functioning properly. I don't know if he smokes now. Maybe a little too much drinking over here, George. Take it easy, bro. Right? Maybe you're overdoing it. Get some rest. I know the guy works from like 9 p.m. To like 5 in the morning or something like that. He's like the overnight. He's like a third shift guy. And it's not easy. It takes over. It can be dangerous. And it's not for everybody. But I know he's been doing it for 20 plus years. I think I think they should come out publicly and tell us what's wrong with George, because it's a dramatic change in his voice and tone. He sounds very, ill. He sounds ill. If you agree with me, I don't know. I know you guys hate George, and the comments will probably be like, he should retire. But I'm hopeful. I hope he gets help. He goes see a doctor, and I want to be with George for another 10 years. There's no other. Who can do coast to coast? I can't think of anybody who can do coast to coast right now. Have a good night, guys, and may the force be with you. Bye.